Thank you. Lovely to see you. And we're fine in ourselves, but we had a heck of a job getting on to speak to you today. And I just remind people outside of Britain that last week in England and in Wales, many millions of people lost their email. I mean, it's been off and on.
It's clogged and off and on, huh?
Yeah, so we're working now, and I can never be sure quite what the issues are, but I did think I wasn't going to be able to get on and speak to you today. So thank you for persevering, and thank you for sending the link about five different ways.
No problem, my friend. I'm so excited to get to talk to you. It's been a good 2 weeks, and lots happening in the world. So, hey, I know you do a kind of a daily update, so give me some insight of what's going on, and we'll share this with the folks that listen to you and I speak. It's last week we did over 200,000 folks jumped on to see what we were doing. So that's really exciting for both of us to be able to get our messaging out there. So what do you think? We got missionaries kidnapped in Haiti. We got Biden can't get a bill through Congress. We've got all sorts of cool stuff happening in the States. So give us an idea what's going on in the world and what we should be doing.
Okay, well, you and I both sort of sing from the same hymn book, but let's not forget that Biden is destroying your country, and that's clear. But there's a great deal that's occurring which gives all patriots hope, and not false hope, but real hope. And that is simply that in over 200 countries, the local military have decided that they no longer want to have a government imposed on them that was there illegally or evilly. And so it's not just America that is seeing action now, it's right across the board. And I did do a little update myself yesterday, and I talked about how our members in different countries were actually personally feeding us through, saying we're seeing soldiers not just on the street, because that's not that unusual, but
Right.
knocking on doors and warning residents on certain days of the week to stay indoors. And I will just repeat it, Steve, because you won't have picked it up. In New Zealand, we have a very strong, as we do in Australia, we have a very strong connecting consciousness group and management team. And members were alerting us that soldiers were actually knocking on people's doors in the block and saying to them to stay in on a set date. I said, I'm not going to give that date because that's, could get us in trouble. But to stay indoors on a set date, they were going to hear gunfire, explosions, and children screaming, and they had to stay indoors. So these are soldiers, not police, soldiers knocking on people's doors in a neighborhood, telling them that. So, of course, that comes straight back to me via my coordinators. Now, why this is important is that this isn't people on drugs making stories up. This isn't people wanting television news. These are people on anonymity, don't give my name, but, and we know they're members. Some of them I've spoken to myself. So we know it's absolutely genuine. And we know that there are American soldiers now landing in Africa. We've had reports from our members in Africa that American soldiers are releasing children who are held in captivity in some part of Africa. We've got Italian, French, German troops in other countries also in operations. Now, the Pentagon and contact I have both said to me that they were ready now for the second military phase. And this is a military phase that was no longer covert, it was overt. And not just ships on the sea or aeroplanes in the air, because that doesn't actually mean much to us. But it's like you go home after your work and you've got military vehicles on a street that's just a suburban street. Mm-hmm. So these are positive things. And what I wanted to say, Steve, is that it's not the deep state. It's not the cabal. It's not the New World Order. This is the real government making sure that those bad guys don't take over, because that's what they wanted. The bad guys take over. So what's happened is that the good guys have beat them to it, and that's where we are with it. So there's a lot that's going to be happening the remainder of this week and the following week, which we should see more in our eyes. And remember that the White House was lit up with red light, and now where the Queen used to live in Buckingham Palace, that was lit up with green light. So you have two iconic buildings. One is red lit at night and one is green lit at night. And this very much follows what Q has been posting. So anybody who's completely stupid will look at these buildings and think, well, why are they lit up like that? And B, how come Q was writing about this a long time ago? So I think there are some pretty stupid people who are now having to wake up and become intelligent people.
You know, it's amazing. I get phone calls all the time from the Connecting Consciousness folks, and we're always talking about what's next, Steve. When are we going to hear something? When's something going to manifest? And we can point to other people and say, see, I told you so. Well, you just gave us another example of that this was going to be happening, and it did happen. The lights, the things happening. So, folks, this is not a time to go, I need more. It's happening. The wave is happening, and just continue to tune into this stuff. And we ignore finding the information out from CNN. Spend time to go find the answers to your questions or the deeper dive that we talk about. Look for it in other places, right? Through your posts and your information, through the Telegram and through everybody. There's a lot of things that all start to tie together that you don't need to wait for something big to show your friend that, hey, I'm right. You can start to see all these pieces fall in place. And I'm so excited. I love to hear that we're going to see children back in our world. We're going to see kids that don't deserve to go through what they've gone through. And I know that your organization around the world, and I promise you, Body Align, some overlap there, but ultimately we've got 150,000 people that are customers and follow what you and I do. And I want to be able to make sure that we can solicit them. So if you ever hear that they need help, that these children need help in fostering or adoption, please get us the information so we can get it out there. And I'm sure we can have cars waiting at airports to take these kids and bring them back to life, bring them back to the frequency and the passion that they deserve to have and get elevated, because that right now they're clearly not. And I don't think it's going to take much as your organization, especially, and the people that I know around the world are ready to step up and go help these guys out, because it's a horrible world they've been in. And I pray that we get them surfaced and we can get them integrated to love and passion and to salvation. I think ultimately that's our role now, is how do we step up and do something on behalf of them and turn them to spirituality and salvation.
Well, once the military operation is over, Connecting Consciousness will be playing some role, particularly with the med beds. So we would imagine some of these children, who will all be given new identities, will have new parents, they'll be put in new accommodation, and some of them will have a packet of money that will follow them through their life so that they can access certain things to help them, whether that be education. But certainly through the med beds, Connecting Consciousness expects to be dealing with these children and what Bodyline can do. And, you would be paid for it. You wouldn't give it free, Steve. But there are some of the products that you have which would be particularly helpful to these young people. And so what we can do is arrange for them to get like a package or a parcel when they're at the
absolutely. And I've got time as we evolve here and I learn more about the MedBed and its approach and what we can do. My technology doesn't stop at sleep. It doesn't stop at mass and other ways. It can be all the way through repatterning the brain waves. It can happen in physical changes as well as emotional, spiritual changes. So, we're standing by my research lab. As soon as I get a better understanding of what we can do, I think I can tune the technology to go make that happen, whether it's a patch.
Certainly what I think when the military thing is over, then there's hang on, just a dog has been a bit naughty. There's lots of scope, Steve, for us to have a discussion with people and to see where you can fit in and with that. And I do think that's going to happen. In fact, I'll make it happen. I just wanted to quickly go back to something, Steve. There's always a fallout when a person predicts. About maybe 2015, 2016, there were a spate of bomb explosions in European and Scandinavian cities. I think Belgium got hit and other countries. And there was a lot of talk about particular cities that were going to be hit. Now, I was given some intel where the people who gave me the intel told a city it was going to happen. They didn't know where, but they wanted to get that out so that CC members in particular who, did keep away from that area. And that bomb actually went off in the city that I named, and other people had named completely different cities. And that was a game changer, because suddenly people thought, hang on, how did Simon get that right? How did he have the right intel? And what happens is that people often focus on you, and all they want is the latest intel. And I've always said, Steve, that we mix spirituality with intel, because intel on its own is just intel. We need to have an understanding of life, and we need to empower ourselves. So I've always tried to mix the two. But there is going to be things happening in people's face. And I just finishing up, Steve, I don't necessarily think people need it for themselves. It's because they're under pressure from their mum and dad or their brother or their sister or their partner who says, you're delusional, you're crazy. And so lots of patriots or lots of spiritual people want this to happen so they can turn to their best friend and say, see, I told you so, I'm not mad. And that's coming. I promise you that's coming. But I'll just quickly finish up before we move on. I'm not convinced, and this might not go down too well, I'm not convinced that when President Trump returns to office, and he's going to, that he would want to do a full term. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll come back because he needs to come back, and then I think he'll go. And there's a lovely little video going around on YouTube, I think, and it's got all of the patriots, people who are officially dead, like JFK Jr. and Princess Diana, and Prince, and they're all been, in a tasteful way, they've sort of been CGI'd to a song. And then at the very end of this song, President Trump comes on and he says, I'm too damn old for all this. Now, people will laugh, but the person who's created that is deeply involved in the intel. And what I want to interpret that for people is that's not a warning, but it's advice to you, to the audience, that when President Trump does return, he won't do very long at all, maybe 120 days. And then he's going to say, I did what I had to do. I am now endorsing a particular individual. This individual has my endorsement. And then what President Trump will do is become one of the key advisors. And they will going to create, I believe, a new president, a new vice president, and a key advisors. And I think Trump will be one of those key advisors. So don't say, oh my God, President Trump, look, he's done his job. He did what he did. No one else could have done it. Those 4 years, I think he'll come back, have an inauguration, thank everybody, do a little bit in office, and hand over. And we're beginning to see that now with people in the know dropping stuff in social media. So
as that happens, it's going to be, whether it's 1 day or 1 hour with Trump coming back, it'll be restoring the Constitution. It's going to restore us to something that we were born to support. Liberty is available to every human being everywhere. And now we can feel it. We can feel the manifestation happening. I talk to folks every day, and I'll tell you what, Simon, it's just the momentum is getting gigantic here. So these conversations are fantastic and give folks a lot of insight. I love the fact that we always tie spirituality into the future. And if we don't, it's always going to be a gap, right? If it isn't based on our spirituality, being a Christian means I get to go to bed and wake up, okay, and go, it's going to be okay. I don't care when. I just know that it is. And so for me, it makes so much sense to just let the world happen, to be there when you call us up and say, Steve, I've got 13,000 children inbound to JFK. I need every available willing person to help us get these folks in place from your organization, my organization, so we can get these kids integrated and back to consciousness, back to spirituality, so their existence isn't a waste. It's then tied to something that's bigger and better than they are. So, hey, count on us. What's your thoughts on Haiti right now? Any insight into black hat, white hat maneuver down there, or what do you think it is? Just another false flag of, hey, folks, pay attention over here while I try to get Congress to cram this bill down the throats of Americans?
At first sight, when anybody gets kidnapped or anything happens, we know when the bad guys are involved because it's always about a ransom. They're desperate. Bad guys are desperate to get money in. They are absolutely starved of cash now, and they will do anything to try to ransom or obtain money. So often when people are captured, then like that, groups of missionaries or priests, whatever it is, and a ransom is asked for, then if you trace it back, there's always the cabal at the back of that with their lackeys doing it. I haven't had enough intel. I've been so focused on the United States and Europe and Australia and New Zealand that I haven't had any intel on that. If I said I see it as a sideshow, that is not a nice thing to say because it would upset the people or families or friends. But what I mean is, from the game playing out, the answer to it, the resolving of it, will not actually be resolved in Haiti or anywhere else. It will only be resolved in the United States. So action and activity that takes place in the United States of America will resolve that. And 99% of issues across the globe are not resolved in the country of origin. They're resolved in the United States of America. So issues in Israel between Israel and Syria, or Israel and Egypt, it isn't the answer there. The answer's in America. So that's why I focus on the US, not because I'm deaf to anyone else, but I know that's where we can get things moving.
Fantastic. Well, any other cool updates you see in the world that our folks want to hear about?
Well, people like to hear good news. People don't like to hear bad news. And I think what we can say is that there is going to be an economic situation happening very quickly. United States Incorporated is in default. And it's a bit confusing because American people are used to the Congress holding the president to blackmail. In other words, if you don't do this, we're going to cut off the funds and you basically can't pay federal government. And that's normal. That's politics in America. But what's happened this time, for the first time in America's history since, 1781 or something like that, is that America has defaulted on its bond payments. So for the first time in history, they have not been able to make their bond payments. Now, that means that they are technically, and that's what matters in law, technically in default. And it means now that although the bad guys have not had easy access, they've had access, but not easy access to the Federal Reserve or the IRS, they're now locked out of it. And what I want to just finish off and tell you is that although there was an arrangement, an agreement between the white hats and the black hats, and you won't find this anywhere else on the internet, so this is brand new for you. There was an agreement between white hats and black hats that at Deutsche Bank and at the Federal Reserve, the black hats would not print any more money. But they've gone against that, and they've been printing it. Because what the deal was that as we move to the QFS will fund central banks, and that's how it's going to be. But the bad guys have been working the printing presses. They are desperately short of money, and the fact of the matter is, if you don't have the money, you can't start wars, you can't bring governments down, and they're really, really, really pissed, to use your American expression.
A little different for you, pissed. But
very different. I mean, it means for American audience, it means to be drunk in this country. Yes. But in your country, it means to be angry. I know that because my grandfather spent so much time with the CIA that he just spoke American language. But the point I'm making here is that although people demanding, I want to see action in my face, it's happening. And, those people who are saying that, what they want is an EBS. They want mainstream media to come down. But before that can happen, Steve, the white hats have got to take control of certain other things. And that's why this is covert, because you can't just stick an EBS out. You have to have all the other dominoes sorted.
Right.
And 3/4 of the way there now. So just one more final push, and people will get what they want. They'll get, the resolve they need. It's coming. It's there.
It's I love talking to you because there's so much insight. And if you folks, if you have trouble connecting what Simon's talking about, I pray that you find some connection. As you're talking, I'm going, oh, that makes sense why we have a supply chain gap, right? Weaken us by a supply chain gap. All the stuff that we're seeing, this inflation and all the stuff that's going on in this world, are a way for them to manipulate the currency. They have more power when gold is $5,000 an ounce, right? They have more power when the value of assets are huge. They can liquidate those, or they can leverage those to do something. Believe me, it's being manipulated, and it will come crashing down when we wake up. There's no excuses for what's going on other than when prices go up, it's because demand went up or supply went down. Well, my habits for consumption haven't changed. In fact, my habits for consumption have gone down. How can that be? What's going on? Well, the only thing that happens is somebody controls supply, right? Or overpumps money, right? They're going, wait a minute, I can now buy a big TV because I have more money. I have stimulus check. They're willing to pay more for what they're getting. So there's a mental inflation, and then there's a structural inflation, and they are pulling on that lever as hard as they can. So instead of elevating people with stimulus checks and with a better economy, what they've done is we're going to push the ability to be successful in the economy up by bringing inflation up. So let's say at one time it cost you 2% of your daily income to buy a Big Mac. Well, if I can help you make more money and Big Mac stays the same, it is now 1%. And you've gained because you now have more buying value. Well, what's going to happen now is Big Mac's going to go higher. So now it's 3%. Maybe your salary will catch up a little bit, but the next month or next 2 months, before long, you can't compete, and you've taken everybody down. It is a tax on everybody. Folks, it should be the number one concern if you care about the future is what they're doing to drive the value of our currency down. And that's exactly what happens. If I can't put up $2 and get a Big Mac, okay, now it's $3 and then it's $4 or $3.50 for a tank of gas or a gallon of gas, then they're manipulating us to devalue all of our assets, everything that we have. And they pinch us and they will control us if we're not careful. We've got to get these changes in place. QFS has got to step in and be with us because we can't afford this. This is not where it needs to be. This is absolutely crazy. We work too hard as society and push too hard. The Green, all these people have these visions of we want to elevate everybody and take everybody in the bottom and make them in the middle and no more the bottom. And I'm going, you don't understand. It is not going to happen that way. You have to create the structural things that allow people to elevate and not supply and demand them to see if you can elevate them, because it's just going to wipe out. It is just going to wipe them out. And the value they may have accumulated is going to get knocked down. That's just simple economics, folks. This is Nobel Prizes have been given out on the exact concept that you and I are talking about, Simon. So I'm not smarter than anybody. I'm just reading what they wrote, and they're dead nuts on.
Well, people, when they talk about giving financial advice and they're not financial advisors, it's fraught with difficulty. And lots of people say, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you what I would do. But what I can say is that I know for a fact that central banks are buying up gold now as fast as they can. And so the price of gold is being held at a set price so that it is viable for banks to buy.
Right, they get it at a discount, right?
Exactly right. Now,
right.
That's going to change, I can assure people.
Yes.
Very, very soon, very soon. But I wanted to quickly talk about the supply and demand, and we've just talked about the container ships. Here in Great Britain, normally by October, it's full into Christmas, just like in America, I guess. The windows have Christmas trees in and Father Christmases and all the rest of it. Zero, nothing. So I talked to a shop owner a couple of days ago, and I said, what's going on here? I said, I can remember 30 years ago, it would be like Christmas every year the same. And they said that they'd had an email round from whichever is the agency organization that works with them, telling them that there just wasn't Christmas stock anywhere, and that if they started Christmas now, come December, there'd be nothing left. So all the shops in Britain were told
They're trying to delay everything.
exactly because there was only a small amount, and they're saying if you're into Christmas turkey, I know you guys have Thanksgiving, but we in this country, those who eat meat, have turkey at Christmas. They basically say there won't be any. There won't be the traditional things. So in Britain, people have been told buy it now because in 4 weeks' time there won't be anything. So what you've got is a cabal who are saying, let's squeeze the population, let's bring a collapse around so that it's easier for us to take control. So you've got the white hats on one hand trying to free children out of prisons, and on the other hand, you've got the cabal trying to limit the amount of food or gas or whatever that is available. So it's a war. It's an unconventional war that's being fought. And I will say to people, please don't think this is like a game of checkers. I'll move one space, you move one space. This is being fought completely differently. It's not bombs falling on your head. This is a mixture of economics and politics. And so it's very hard to understand what's happening.
Yeah, it's liberty in commerce, right? It's liberty in our financial values, where the war is today. This is not about lead and bombs. You're right, 100%. You know, when I talk to people about the economy, you know, I've done a lot of, you know, my life is just passion with the global view of the world and studying currency and economies. And I'm like, what are you doing? Let's say we're going to see a 5% inflation. What are you going to do? I'm saving my money. And I'm going, don't save your money. Spend your money because it's going to be worth less and less.
Steve, the true inflation rate in America now is 10%, but that's not being told to people. Your true inflation is 10%.
Imagine, and folks, you know, they think saving is the good asset. No, I said buying things that make sense. I bought I used to drive a big old Suburban, 15 miles a gallon, right? And I used it for construction. I don't know if you've seen me in my hard hats and my vest and stuff. And I would use that 15 miles a gallon. I said, wait a minute. If this is happening, I could see this months ago. So May, June timeframe, I bought a hybrid Camry, gets 45 miles a gallon. So since the time I bought it to today, I put almost 18,000 miles on it. It gets 3 times better mileage. I'm going, my monthly costs have dropped. So I'm in deflation, right? The amount of money I put towards gas or my lifestyle is going down. So if you got the money, don't save it. Invest it or spend it on things that can leverage you or help you against inflation, right?
Right. It's absolutely vital. So I would say to people, if you've got a yard outside, break up the concrete, gut down some earth, get some earth on there, and take some of that money that you've been hiding in the bank or hiding under the bed and go and buy a spade and go and buy seeds and plants and actually put them in the ground and grow food. Because that is much better than the $100 sitting under your bed. So
that'll track inflation. That is the price of asparagus up, and you're growing it. I'm like, yep, the value is going up. You get to eat it, and you've just now outperformed inflation. Thank you, God. Thank you, dirt, water, what have you. You've just beat inflation.
People are saying to me, you know, oh, I've just bought myself a new cell phone, and I say that's very nice. Can you dig the garden with it? Can you dig earth with it? And they look at me as if I'm mad and they don't get it. The reality is that what I can say about the White Hats is that they wish a return to 1955. They wish a return to 1955. In other words, inflation at 1955 rates. 1955 has been chosen by the White Hats as the year to aim for because it was when America was great, before the satanic evil cabal had taken control. They were there, but before they took control, and it was the time of the American dream. Now, we may think that's a bit old hat, as we say in Britain, but the reality is they're aiming on that because it's something that gives them economically. So prices, 1955 prices and 1955 inflation, if you can get back to that, then people's salary actually means that you can afford your own home. It means that you can have a decent car. You're not continually having to borrow on a credit card. And so they've got it planned out. These guys have been at this for 30 years to plan this out. So don't expect, I'm saying to people now, don't expect an answer like that. It's going to take a few weeks, but they're working on it. And we're going to look back, Steve, you and I and others, and think, wow, that was a hell of a journey. It's just difficult.
Well, I'm going to, last time we were talking, we did a little competition, right? And we gave away 5 coins. They've been mailed out. The coins went out today. The bands went out earlier in the week. So what I'm going to do now is not for today, but I got to go. I got some Kennedy $half that are pure silver. Yeah. Or not pure, but like 87 or 90% silver. But I was going to say, hey, I got my hands on a couple of these. Nope. I'm going back and finding me as many 1955 coins, okay, in your honor. So you don't have to send me an email yet, but on our next time, when I know how many I have and what denomination I have, I got to get them programmed. I'm going to find 1955 coins, and we're going to have another little competition just in commemorating what 1955 is for us, because you're right. If we could settle back to that point where the quality of life, the financial security that we could have, the affordability of our lives, the stresses of our life, the spirituality in our life is a pretty darn good time. Now, I wasn't there then, so it may be better if I was there, but the reality is
I wasn't there either. Let me quickly get in there. Yeah. But that was 10 years after the war with Germany. I know that the war with Japan went on longer, but that's exactly 10 years after the European war, let me call it like that. And I think it was a time in America where anything was possible. The dream was there. They've been through this horrible war, and now was the time to look to the future. And I think there was a spark. The only time we've had it in this country, actually, was 1899 to 1900. We went through that millennium, and there was the most amazing spark in this country of art, whether it be architecture, paintings, poetry. There was no films as such, but plays, and there was a real enthusiasm. And then, of course, like anything, it died down. And I think what they've said is 1955, as you've just said quite rightly, Steve,